Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your sommelier of cinema, your Archbishop of Banterbury, your Chancellor of Cheerfulness. My God, your existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, me, Robert Meyer Burnett, coming at you, Robcasting at you from this, the Robservatory. Coming at you, you imagination connoisseurs and members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. This is Robservations episode number 442. It is not Robservations with Rob Liefeld, although that's a good show too. You should listen to it. Anyway, it's good to have you here for episode number 442. You know, finally, there's some entertainment news that I wanted to discuss, that I wanted to jump into, all kinds of craziness. And I have to tell you, one of the most surprising and perhaps delightful things that has emerged over the last couple of years is KAREEM ABDUL-JABBAR. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You're asking yourself, well, wait a minute. Hasn't KAREEM ABDUL-JABBAR been a thing since, like, the 70s? He has indeed. Didn't he appear in Airplane? He did. He was the co-pilot of the plane in Airplane. But you know, did you know KAREEM ABDUL-JABBAR was one of the staff writers on the revival of Veronica Mars for Hulu? Did you know that? He is. He's also become a delightful entertainment columnist and weighs in on many of the entertainment news items of the day. And like seemingly on cue, he had something to say that I immediately gravitated toward that was published today, this morning at 6:15 in the Hollywood Reporter. And I figured, what better way to start this show off by sharing with you the words of KAREEM ABDUL-JABBAR. My father says you don't try, except during the playoffs. Not true. KAREEM ABDUL-JABBAR, why Gone with the Wind needs a warning label and not a ban. You know, I read this and I'm like, you know, leave it to KAREEM to take the, it's a hot take, maybe, I don't know. The Hollywood Reporter's resident columnist says that though such racist content is damaging, quote, we need a way to present art within its historical context so the works can still be available and appreciated for their achievements but not admired for their cultural failings. I think that's pretty easy, clear, concise, easy to understand. I have mixed feelings on John Ridley's well-reasoned Los Angeles Times op-ed article asking HBO Max to temporarily remove Gone with the Wind, which the service then did on June 9th. On one hand, John Ridley is 100% correct. The film glorifies the Confederacy as if they were a bunch of highly principled martyrs, hunkered down in holy glory instead of an entitled mob of human trafficking murderers, rapists, and traitors trying to destroy the United States. The film also romanticizes slavery as if it was nothing more than a workplace sitcom in which all the slaves were happy baristas at the plantation Starbucks. On the other hand, very few movies or TV shows from the past could withstand today's rightfully rigorous standards. Almost every one of them that pees on the stick of political correctness will come up positive for insensitivity or worse. My God, KAREEM, I love you, man. Very few movies or TV shows from the past could withstand today's rightfully rigorous standards, and almost every one of them that pees on the stick of political correctness will come up positive for insensitivity or worse. My God, one of my favorite lines of the year. The question is whether or not works of art should be censored, regardless of how offensive they are. Americans are especially sensitive to this issue because we know that the quickest way to undermine democracy is by silencing a free press, of which we've seen the Trump administration make their main priority. From demonizing reporters at rallies to spreading false rumors about a journalist being a murderer to demanding CNN retract and apologize for a poll showing Trump vastly trailing Biden. Once we start silencing voices, the only voice left will be the one echoing those in power. However, Ridley did not call for banning Gone with the Wind. It's clear that those who are so vigorously raging against his article haven't actually read the whole thing. Offering an opinion on something you only skimmed or heard about is just another form of censorship because now you're poisoning the well for others. Here's what he actually wrote. Let me be real clear. I don't believe in censorship. I don't think Gone with the Wind should be relegated to a vault in Burbank. I would just ask, after a respectful amount of time has passed, that the film be reintroduced to the HBO Max platform along with other films that give a more broad-based and complete picture of what slavery and the Confederacy truly were. Or perhaps it could be paired with conversations about narratives and why it's important to have many voices sharing stories from different perspectives rather than merely those reinforcing the views of the prevailing culture. So what he's asking that, given the current climate, heated climate of widespread protests over police brutality and systemic racism, maybe let's hold off shoving the joys of slavery and the heroes of racism in our faces. Which brings up the crucial question of where do we draw the line? Whoopi Goldberg responded to the editorial by stating on The View that she was against pulling the film. If you start pulling every film, you're going to have to pull a very long list of films. Her solution was to have a frank conversation with her children about how filmmakers in the past weren't as enlightened as we are now. Meghan McCain responded by saying she would explain to her child that this is a fantastical, completely fictionalized version of the South during this time that was wrecked with slavery. These may be a fantastical, completely fictionalized version of the influence of parents in a world where kids watch movies spontaneously on their phones with no one around. What about the parents who say nothing to their children, or worse, praise the film's portrayal of history? Most adults have been brought up on an unhealthy diet of movies and TV shows that were profoundly racist, misogynistic, homophobic, and xenophobic. Women were addle-headed sex objects that were especially cute when they tried to act equal to men. Gays were predators or objects of ridicule. The portrayal of blacks was generally subservient, drug-addicted, or perhaps worse, non-existent. Did you know that 25% of cowboys were black? Not if you watched Western movies or TV shows. It's disturbing to me that many of the films and TV shows I loved as a child make me wince with embarrassment at their bold cruelty and callous dismissiveness. John Wayne in 2 different films spanking grown women to show them their place. The Beatles song Run for Your Life with the lyrics, catch you with another man, that's the end of little girl. Never mind the fact that he's creepily referring to her as a little girl. More to the point, he's threatening to kill her if she dates someone else. Should we ban John Wayne and the Beatles? No. And no one is calling for a ban. What we need is a way to present art within its historical context, so the works can be available and appreciated for their achievements, but not admired for their cultural failings. The easiest way would be to include an introductory explanation, filmed or written, that explains that the work contains harmful racial or gender stereotypes that were acceptable at the time but which we now know are harmful. Links to further discussions and information could also be provided. That is the bare facts of what we should do to emphasize that these portrayals are no longer acceptable. To do nothing is a tacit endorsement of their destructive messages. And, like vaping, prolonged exposure causes damage to our children. We put a warning label on one, why not the other? Art can either inform us of past follies or it can perpetuate them. Movies and TV shows that display the subjugation, humiliation, or marginalization of anyone are like the Confederate monuments. They have a place in history as both manifestations of and warnings against our ignorance. In temporary life, they are weighty anchors pulling us down to the bottom while the rest of the world swims freely toward the future. You know, this wasn't a long essay, but man, do I like it. I agree with everything he says here. I mean, he even says that within movies like Gone with the Wind, there are astonishing achievements, artistic achievements. It's an important film. Uh, One of the great historical epics that Hollywood has ever made. Problematic, sure. But there's some wonderful filmmaking. Max Steiner's score for the film is one of the best ever written for a movie. There's a lot of great acting. The storyline, the actual human storyline about Scarlett O'Hara and Rhett Butler and their, I mean, you could have told that story in any kind of, you could have made a science fiction version of Gone with the Wind. Indeed, that's kind of what it is. It's a historical science fiction show, I suppose. But I really appreciated this essay, and I thought it took courage for KAREEM ABDUL-JABBAR to write this. I have to say that I've reported on things he said before on this show, and I very much appreciated his take on this. So thank you, KAREEM. Really enjoyed it. Now, that is not the only breaking entertainment news story today. There's a lot of other interesting stories for those of you who live here in Southern California. We knew this was probably going to be coming, but it was made official. Star Wars Celebration canceled amid the coronavirus pandemic. The event was scheduled to run from August 27th through the 30th in the Anaheim Convention Center. The Star Wars Celebration is the latest big entertainment event to be upended by the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. The convention, organized Reed Pop in partnership with Lucasfilm, has been canceled ahead of its late summer schedule. It's the first time the event has been canceled in Celebration history. The event was scheduled to run from August 27th through the 30th in the Anaheim Convention Center. At Star Wars Celebration, the health and safety of our fans, attendees, exhibitors, guests, and staff is always our number one priority, organizers said in a statement Monday, meaning today. Due to the global impact of the COVID-19 virus and in speaking with local and state authorities on the latest public health guidelines related to indoor conventions, we have made the decision to cancel Star Wars Celebration for 2020. Fans who purchase tickets can receive a full refund or have their tickets transferred to the next Star Wars Celebration, which is set to take place in Anaheim August 18th through the 21st, 2022. So 2 years from now. The refund date opens June 22nd and must be completed by August 26th. Hotels booked through Star Wars Celebration's portal will be automatically canceled. Since its 1999 inception, Celebration has relocated with almost each successive event, with shows in the U.S., the U.K., Japan, and Germany. Recent celebrations have offered early looks at films such as Star Wars The Last Jedi and Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, and scene appearances from actors past and present. This year's event was to be the second time Celebration had been held in a Californian city, and its third Californian event altogether. There was an earlier Anaheim Celebration in 2015 and a Los Angeles event in 2007. The coronavirus pandemic has already seen July's San Diego Comic-Con canceled. We knew it was coming, but now it's official. What else happened today? What more can I tell you about what happened today? Well, the Oscars, ladies and gentlemen. That's correct. The Oscars were pushed back to April 25th. That might be the latest the Oscars have ever been pushed back, but it happened, and they have some interesting things to say. Again, this was published at 11:30 this morning. Scott Feinberg in The Hollywood Reporter is reporting on this. As a result of the global pandemic, the 93rd Academy Awards ceremony has been pushed back from February 28th to April 25th. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences and its Oscars broadcasting partner ABC announced on Monday. In turn, the Oscars eligibility period for feature films, which began on January 1st, 2020 and was set to expire at the end of December 31st, 2020, has been extended to February 28th, 2021. That means movies can come out until then, February 28th, 2021, and still be considered for the Oscars. The Hollywood Reporter exclusively reported on Sunday that this was set to happen. While highly unusual, these moves are not unprecedented. The Oscars has been delayed 3 times before due to LA flooding in 1938, following the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King in 1968, and after the attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan in 1981. And, as I noted back in March, the Oscars eligibility window was extended beyond the traditional 12-month period once before, ahead of the 6th Oscars. That ceremony in March 1934 was preceded by a 17-month eligibility window spanning August 1st, 1932 through December 31st, 1933. so that thereafter the eligibility period could be the actual calendar year preceding the ceremony on January 1st through December 31st. In a statement, the Academy indicated that the Oscars will still be held at the Dolby Theater in Hollywood and Highlands Center in Hollywood and will air live on ABC. An apparent rejection of the possibility of a pre-taped and or virtual gathering, and the Academy emphasized the intent going forward is to ultimately return to awarding excellence for films released in the January-December calendar year. A number of other major changes were announced. The Oscar submission deadline for general entries, among them Best Picture, Original Score, and Original Song, is now January 15th, 2021. The submission deadline for specialty categories, Best Animated Feature, Documentary Feature, International Feature, Animated Short, Documentary Short, and Live Action, is now December 1st, 2020. Oscar shortlist voting will now run from February 1st through February 5th. Nomination voting will now run from March 5th through March 10th. Nominations will be announced on March 15th, and final voting will now run from April 15th through April 20th. Meanwhile, the Academy's annual Governor's Awards, a gala dinner, usually held in the second week of November, at which the organization for the past 11 years has presented honorary Oscars, and in some years, the Irving G. Thalberg Memorial Award and the Jean Hersholt Humanitarian Award, will not take place this fall. Additional information about the ceremony and selection of honorees will be provided at a later time. And the Academy's Scientific and Technical Awards presentation, which was scheduled for a June 20th, 2020 ceremony in Beverly Hills, has been postponed to a later date, still to be determined. Additionally, the Academy has also announced two key dates pertaining to its long-gestating Academy Museum of Motion Pictures, which was previously expected to open on December 14th, 2020. It will now be unveiled to select audiences at a gala event a few days ahead of the Oscars on April 17th, and will open to the public a few days after the Oscars on April 30th. For over a century, movies have played an important role in comforting, inspiring, and entertaining us during the darkest of times. Academy President Dave Rubin and CEO Dawn Hudson said in a statement, "They certainly have this year. Our hope is in extending the eligibility period, and our awards dates is to provide flexibility filmmakers need to finish and release their films without being penalized for something beyond anyone's control. This coming Oscars and the opening of our new museum will mark a historic moment, gathering movie fans around the world to unite through cinema." Carrie Burke, ABC Entertainment president, added, "We find ourselves in uncharted territory this year and will continue to work with our partners at the Academy to ensure next year's show is safe and a celebratory event that also captures the excitement of the opening of the Academy Award or Academy Museum of Motion Pictures." And the Academy Museum director Bill Kramer chimed in, "I speak for all of us at the museum when I say that we have been eagerly awaiting the moment when we can share the Academy Museum with movie lovers everywhere. With the unprecedented and devastating pandemic happening around the world and our commitment first and foremost to the health and safety of our visitors and staff, we've made the difficult decision to wait a few more months to open our doors. Thankfully, with COVID-19 safety protocols in place, exhibitions continue to be installed. We look forward to April 2021 when Los Angeles and the world will be able to join together as the Academy celebrates the Oscars and the opening of a long dreamed of museum." So there you go. All very interesting news stories, all related to the ongoing pandemic, but I think in the long run, had to be done. Had to be done. But yeah, I thought those were all fairly interesting stories. So I'm happy to share them with you. Which, that's what we do here. You know what else we do here? We read letters. Damn it. We read letters. Half this show is about you people. You wonderful people. And once again, I got wonderful letters. And would it surprise any of you to know, we might have missed her at our little Zoom party, but ladies and gentlemen, guess what? Guess what? I got a letter from Miss Willow Yang. It's true. For those of you who don't know her, who haven't come to love her, you will. You will. It's like when Yoda said, "Oh, you will. You will be." You will love Willow Yang if this is your first Willow Yang letter. But I'm going to read it to you now. So take it away, Willow. She also has a column. All of her letters go up on the Burnettwork.net website, which I encourage you all to visit. And look out for her section, Willow Talk. Willow talk. This is her new piece. Greetings, Rob. Hang on, hold on. Greetings, Rob. Not too long ago, there's been a discussion on the alteration of historical canon in movies. Apparently, there are actually people who thought that what happened to Sharon Tate and Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is real. To be fair, I only learned about the Manson murders because I took a sociology class in high school. If I hadn't taken the course, I probably wouldn't have known what was real and what was fictional. Hopefully, however, the majority of people do know that Hitler didn't get gunned down in a movie theater. Of course, Tarantino certainly isn't the only filmmaker to take major liberties with history. Some of the most acclaimed films in Hollywood are also extremely historically inaccurate. One such film that comes to my mind is Braveheart, mostly because I've had to write a report on the movie's historical inaccuracies for a high school class. I won't go into all the problems with the clothing, the weapons, and locations. I will just talk about some of the events that happened in the movie. Even though a lot about William Wallace is currently unknown, it's widely accepted by historians that he was born into Scottish gentry and was relatively affluent and well-educated. Not a simple peasant the film would have you believe. Most historians are also skeptical about whether prima nocta was ever actually practiced. The Battle of Falkirk happened in 1298. Princess Isabella of France was born in 1295, making her about 3 years old at the time. While I do realize that people back then might get married and have children a lot younger, it's still ludicrous, if not downright creepy, to suggest that Wallace could have had an affair and fathered a child with her. In reality, Isabella didn't marry Edward II until 1308. And while Edward I, aka Longshanks, was a despot by today's standards, contemporary accounts also indicate he was pious and charitable toward the poor. He didn't defenestrate? I can't even say that. His son's male lover. In reality, he had him exiled, and Edward II immediately brought him back to the court after Longshanks' death, which happened in 1307, 2 years after Wallace's execution. Another great movie that took a lot of liberties from historical canon that I've also had to write in on is Gladiator. Oh my God, you dare impugn the... I'm just kidding. Gladiator, the first and foremost inaccuracy being that, and I'm really sorry to tell you this, Maximus Decimus Meridius is a fictional character. No. Marcus Aurelius wasn't murdered by Commodus. He died after catching the plague and possibly smallpox, and Commodus was actually the one who was able to negotiate a peace treaty with the Germanic tribes after he became the emperor. Lucilla was married when Commodus took the throne, and she engaged in a failed assassination plot against her brother to install her husband as the emperor and was executed for it. Commodus also ruled Rome for about 12 years, much longer than what was implied in Gladiator, considering that Lucius, who in reality died as a child, didn't age much at all throughout the film, and while he did engage in gladiatorial duels, he was actually assassinated in a bathtub. Finally, while it is difficult to gauge what the actual mortality rate in gladiatorial duels is, the highest estimates by historian is 1 in 4, meaning that the majority of fights don't end in death. This is consistent with the fact that gladiators are actually quite expensive to train, feed, and care for, and having them killed needlessly like they were in the movie isn't really profitable. The whole alteration of history certainly isn't unique to Hollywood. It's something that's been going on for perhaps since humans began telling stories. One example I always go to is Shakespeare's Richard III, because, as you've guessed it, I've had to write on that as well. Whether it was simply because he had to keep the Tudors happy, or because he wanted to heighten the drama, or simply because information was harder to access at the time, but Shakespeare's depiction of the eponymous character was quite slanderous. Firstly, Richard was not a grotesque hunchback with a withered arm. There are no contemporary accounts of him having any noticeable deformities other than uneven shoulders caused by scoliosis, and examination of his skeletal remains have confirmed this. And when it comes to all of his supposed crimes, where to even begin? Richard and Anne Neville were actually well acquainted with each other, having grown up together as children, and he did not stab her first husband to death. It's highly dubious that Richard murdered Anne. Most historians attribute her death to tuberculosis. Richard did not arrange for the assassination of his brother, George Plantagenet, aka the Duke of Clarence. It was King Edward IV, who prosecuted Clarence and ordered his execution. There was no account of Richard ever attempting to marry his own niece following Anne's death. Indeed, documents show that he was actually trying to negotiate a marriage to the Princess of Portugal. As for his perhaps most infamous crime, the murder of his nephews, there is currently still no direct evidence that the princes were actually murdered, and if they were, who the murderer was. Of course, Richard is definitely a suspect in their disappearances. However, it's important to note that nobody really knows what happened. Indeed, Josephine Tey has written a novel called The Daughter of Time to counter all of the charges that had been laid out against Richard. As a side note, I hated The Daughter of Time when I was forced to read it in grade 7. I found the main character, Grant, to be insufferably smug. There are, of course, countless other examples of alliterations to history in movies and literature. I've just recently watched Schindler's List with my mom, and while I do think that the film probably gives as accurate a representation of life during the Holocaust as we've seen on the big screen, there are moments in the movie that I feel are highly dramatized and emotionally manipulative. Nevertheless, I personally don't have any issues with the creators taking artistic licenses. I don't believe that is on the onus of the creator to give the audience a lesson in history, or science, or anything else for that matter. That's the job of educators. I think a creator should just do what they can do to tell the best story they can, and if that means taking certain liberties, so be it. What are your thoughts on this? Willow, I'm kind of with you on that, but I do believe that if you're making a historical epic set at a certain time and a place with people that are real, you should make some kind of effort to make those things at least feel real. I think there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm not going to hold somebody necessarily to that exacting standard because all movies are made up. So it's not like, well, this part of the movie is absolutely 100% accurate. But I would like to believe that for the most part they are, because so many movies I've seen led me to finding out what the real story was. But I still think, that we want. It's a good question. Art, history, commerce. What's the best way to work? It's interesting. You're right. I don't think movies are very accurate. But do they have an obligation to their audience maybe to skew a little closer to the truth? I think probably so. But you never know. You know what I do know? Imagination connoisseur Jack Wallace from Walla Walla, Washington is a good man. How do I know that he's a good man? Why do I bring Jack Wallace up on the show? Because Jack Wallace is what's a leather worker called? I guess... I don't know what you call. I'm so blown away by this, I can't even tell you. So I was contacted by Jack Wallace, who says he started watching me on the John Campy show, and he's been working with leather. And he asked if I wanted anything that he could make me. And I said, well, I've always wanted a script cover, like a really nice leather script cover. So you got your screenplay on set, it kind of protects everything. And he made this. He made this for me. Which I find to be absolutely astonishing. So it's got my name embossed there, and then it says director, which I love. And then this design is on the back. And I mean, this is really, really nicely made. And yeah. And I think he'll make something for you too. The work is great. I can't wait to actually have a new script put in here. But I want to thank Jack for this, because wow, how cool is that? Amazing. It's just you imagination connoisseurs, between people like him and Swack Props, everybody that makes stuff, the Richards always making stuff. It's amazing. You guys are amazing. I got more letters, and I'm going to read them. So this first letter, aside from Willow, comes from Jason. I want to say it's Willey. Is it Wiley? I would assume Wiley. If not, I think it's Wiley. Hey, Rob, I would like to say I've been a big fan of your work since the Collider Heroes days and was appalled with how the schmo mob canceled you. Well, I'm still here. They got to do better. Anyway, I see that you love the dark side of cinema, so I was wondering if you would cover more horror films. Maybe make a new show around it, as I would love to hear your opinions about the horror genre in general, whether that would be from the dawn of cinema or the present day. Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I have been talking with Dave Parker. And who might Dave Parker be, you ask? Well, that's a good question. Dave Parker well, I just want to say for the record that this was not my fault. I'm like Han Solo, man. I'm like Han Solo. It was not my fault. This was a YouTube issue. This is definitely a YouTube issue. I was just kicked off of YouTube and they wouldn't let me back in. And I had to do a little dance to get myself. Let's get back to where we are. Let me start over. What I was going to say was I was talking about Jason Wiley and his letter, and he asked me if I would do a horror show, and what I was about to do was this. Yes, I've been thinking about doing a horror show with the director Dave Parker of The Hills Run Red. And as you all know, The Hills Run Red comes out tomorrow on Blu-ray for the very first time with 6.5 hours of new special features, and I'm sure all of you are tired of hearing about me try and promote this film. Well, guess what? Today is the last time I'll do it because it's out tomorrow on Blu-ray for you fans of physical media. So anyway, sorry about that. Now we're back, and now I'll get back to Jason Wiley's letter. He wants us to do a horror show. I've talked about doing a horror show with Dave Parker. Also, Elizabeth and I have we'll cover some more horror. We'll do some more horror on Whining About Movies. Tonight we're doing Jerry Maguire. That's right, we're doing Jerry Maguire on Whining About Movies tonight, which is very exciting. I really love Jerry Maguire. It's a favorite film of mine. It'll be fun to do it. That's going to be tonight. Elizabeth wants to go at 6. I'm just going to need a little siesta beforehand, so we're going at 7 tonight. 7 o'clock. We're doing Whining About Movies at 7, so that'll be exciting. Jerry Maguire. Jason goes on. I was also wondering if you would do shows dedicated to the paranormal, true crime, and unsolved mysteries. From the UK, I've been a huge fan of The Unknown. We had a show in the 90s called Strange But True, hosted by Michael Aspel. It aired for 4 seasons and was essential viewing for me as a kid, even though the music and subject matters were rather unsettling and kept me awake some nights. Before the whole Conjuring universe, I knew a fair bit about the Enfield poltergeist case, as well as other cases in the UK, such as the Rendlesham Forest incident, as well as the crop circle phenomenon made popular by researcher Colin Andrews. Over recent years, we've seen a resurgence in interest regarding the original Unsolved Mysteries series hosted by the late, great Robert Stack. They started putting the Robert Stack seasons on Amazon Prime, with the entire show being put on YouTube and other platforms later on. I know there was the more modern Unsolved Mysteries hosted by Dennis Farina, but it recycled original Robert Stack episodes, changed the music, and Dennis had none of the charm that Robert Stack had. Robert Stack was one of those gold standards in terms of actors, and he went back to the golden era of cinema and knew all the players in Hollywood throughout his time. His work as Elliot Ness in The Untouchables cannot be overlooked, and who could forget his hilarious portrayal as Captain Rex Kramer in Airplane. Rob's voice brought a real gravitas to Unsolved Mysteries. His chilling tones and presence made even the most ludicrous unsolved crime cases seem credible. He also voiced Ultra Magnus in the animated Transformers the movie. Anyway, hope you take my comments on board regarding future shows, and all the best from the UK. Well, maybe it was Poltergeist that pulled me off YouTube. I want to thank you for that letter, Jason. You know, I think doing a horror show makes sense. I don't know if I would tackle the paranormal, true crime, or unsolved mysteries genre because they're being done so well elsewhere, and I couldn't just talk extemporaneously off the top of my head about that. I just don't know those things. I mean, I don't usually like to pontificate about stuff I don't know about off the top of my head. So, you know, anything beyond horror, science fiction, fantasy, or regular movies, dramatic movies, comedy movies, whatever movies, anything outside of that wheelhouse or any of its, you know, comics, action figures, I can talk about those things, but I'd have to do research and be tough. But I think a horror show could be a lot of fun. And I want to thank you for writing in. Christopher McCulloch is here. Christopher McCulloch is one of our you know, newer letter writers, but always coming out with a good one. Mr. Burnett, it is my opinion that art is under no obligation to explain its reason to exist. It exists to be observed, full stop. The end result when it meets its observer is wholly the responsibility of that individual. With that in mind, any alteration to that presentation is a fundamental change to the art itself and what I would consider censorship. I'm a libertine when it comes to censorship, as I would hope all Americans would be, but the Prime Amendment hasn't always been interpreted the way I hoped. In 1954, Frederick Werdum, a child psychiatrist and otherwise stand-up fellow, published the infamous Seduction of the Innocent, the cause of the comic book panic of the 1950s, which would eventually result in the industry's self-censorship and the creation of the Comics Code. What many don't realize is the superhero genre was in decline in post-war America. Western, romance, crime, and horror comics were just as important to the industry, and belial a diversity of comic book readership that is still working to regain. It was this hysteria around what the children of America were reading that would effectively ended large swaths of the comic book industry. When you say belie, you're right about that. It belied that there was an incredible amount. DC Comics published romance comics, and as Alan Moore chimed in with Watchmen, there were other comics other than superhero comics. And if for anybody who's interested, read about what Christopher's talking about here, because Frederick Werdum and the Seduction of the Innocent and that whole era is fascinating. It was this hysteria around what children of America were reading that effectively ended large swaths of the comic book industry. What wasn't ended or exiled would be subsumed into the superhero genre, galvanizing it as the paramount vehicle of comic book storytelling. This kind of behavior wasn't exclusive to comics. Hollywood had its own puritanical flare-up, which resulted in their self-censorship, the Hays Code, and later a rating system. Neither of these are government mandated. They were attempts to preempt involvement from a presumably less sympathetic political operative, but the end result was the same. The decision of what did and did not constitute as art was taken away from the public and the artist by the industries that created it. But every time you censor art, you create an artistic underground. Ipso facto, we have Frederick Werdum to thank for Comics Underground. Stories created by artists completely untethered to any of the social mores that existed when they were writing stories for a general audience. And while it was a little more difficult to make underground films, they too were made with a tooth and a nail and a bit of porn. If you need evidence of the inadequacy of a rating system to identify what the public would consider too obscene for consumption, remember that time an X-rated movie won an Oscar? I believe that would be Midnight Cowboy. But don't think that because these undergrounds existed, that more than a handful of people between Alphabet City and Hell's Kitchen had easy access to these worlds. Much of these works are obscene, often purposely so, thumbing their nose at the shackles placed on their mainstream counterparts. This remote and seedy nature is what it meant to be a nerd for a long time in these subcultures, and probably further added to their stigma in the public eye. Comics controversy is perennial, and the people who defend them, in my experience, labor a fool's errand simply because the people who attack them rarely read them. Truth, justice, and the American way, the things the first superhero stands for. Unfortunately, the American way is not a constant. Sometimes it means freedom, sometimes it means censorship. For comics, it's meant robbing artists of their artistic freedom and then pillorying them whenever they try and reassert it. How often do comics come into the public square? It's usually through controversies, such as when Batman was drawn naked. This push and pull, I know, Vesna and Willow, they're all like, what? Paula, I know. This push and pull has been going on through the industry for decades, with the layman's perception of comics largely being formed by its history of censorship. It's through this prism that I've always interpreted the story of Civil War. I doubt this was intended, but it's a good enough story that its narrative of freedom versus security in a post-9/11 America can support this allegory. Iron Man's Registration Act takes the place of the code. S.H.I.E.L.D., any organ like the MPAA, their Comics Code Authority. We even have children imperiled by insidious heroes with their parents calling for reform. Captain America fights for the American ideal, one that often the majority of people don't even want, whether it's free speech or a Patriot Act, which is why he loses. I got some of this in the MCU, but watching it without much context, there was a vague critique of American adventurism, but the main conflict is writ small, soap opera small, in Cap and Tony's tussle over Bucky, with neither of them really having a coherent argument beyond, but he's my friend, and, but he killed my dad. Then again, I'm a DC hack myself, so I guess I would only expect that of Marvel. Bad things happen, public outrage flares. It's in these times that reaction to freedom can seem like just the thing to do. Muzzling ideas, even the ones you find dangerous, only perpetuates them. Shielding people from ideas does something worse than what the exposure could mean. It creates a mind unable to handle difficult questions. I'll end this letter with an anecdote, who knows, anecdote about my own experience. When I was in high school, I received from my grandfather Triumph of the Will. My grandfather was one of the most magnanimous and good-humored people I've ever known, but when he handed me this movie, he was visibly distraught. He told me I should watch this movie and understand how something like that could have happened. His concerns stemmed, I know, from a similar vein as the one Civil War came. The lesson was manifold, and something that the American people seem to have to be retold whenever a piece of art provokes them. Reality within that proscenium is completely subjective. Whatever reality they want to create, they can. That's the beauty of theater. It's also the cause of so much fear around it. Some think our simian minds have only a questionable attachment to reality. It isn't so. In fact, watching things like Triumph of the Will has only made me a more discerning participant in the canon of artistic expression, something I'd be less of if such offensive materials had been kept from me. It's the same whenever Quentin Tarantino has to go on TV to defend violence in his movies, or Gone with the Wind reminds people that there was a southern slave holding aristocracy in our country. These things are a part of the artistic canon and deserve to be treated as such, and only you are responsible for its effect on you. Censor art at your peril. It doesn't disappear, it only goes underground, and who knows what might happen to it there. Christopher, a little verbose, but never verboten. Well, Christopher, I really love your letters. Sorry I didn't do such a hot job reading that. Look, I agree with you. I 100%, and I am. This room is filled with novels and movies and things. And by the way, when I say that, I don't mean illegal. I don't have stashes of illicit anything. But as I often said, one day someone's going to criticize me for liking Clockwork Orange. That happened recently for calling my Schmodown team the Burning Droogs, and somebody went after me for that. And I'm no longer, I'm not the captain of that team anymore. I don't know if they're going to change that name. I bet they will. Somebody, whoever takes up the mantle of manager, will probably change the name to something that's more suited to their tastes, which I can understand. But I just don't believe in censorship. I don't think that ideas are so dangerous that they have to be put away, no matter what they are. But a great letter, and I want to thank you for writing it. Dean Mkhitch writes in. Dean says, "Hi, Rob," in the Post-Geek Singularity. "I was going through my YouTube feed the other day, and I came across a gem of a video. An imagination connoisseur here in the UK has lovingly built a replica of the Enterprise D bridge in full detail. I know you love your starship porn, and seeing what fans create for their love of a favorite franchise, it cost the gentleman who built this bridge roughly £17,000 to recreate, and it was all done during lockdown. If you have not seen the video, I think you will get a kick out of it. I think you will get a kick at the 3-minute and 6-second mark. There's a nice surprise there. By the way, I haven't talked about this video, but I love this video. And again, everybody like you should love this video as well. And I'm going to put that in the live chat right here if you want to get, this is the kind of creativity I can get behind. Peace and long life, Dean Mkhitch. Well, thank you, Dean. I appreciate it. I had seen that video, but I just shared it, and what a great video it is. Omar is back, ladies and gentlemen. Omar 94. Hi, Rob. Before anything, I want to clarify a few things you brought up on the previous show. You mentioned I'm new to the channel. That's not entirely true. I've watched you since you were on either AMC or Collider Heroes, I can't remember, but started interacting in the live chat and sending letters this year. You also mentioned I was in film school, and that's not true. I took film classes when I was in college, but I'm not in film school or anything like that. Well, thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that. Now to my topic for the letter. Between actors and directors, I find it more impressive when directors show range. Don't get me wrong, actors showing range is very impressive. Gary Oldman shows a range from playing Commissioner Gordon, Sirius Black, Winston Churchill, etc. A lot of comedy actors show range by giving solid dramatic performances like Jim Carrey. He can be very energetic and over the top in The Mask and Dumb and Dumber, but he can also be serious in The Truman Show and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. However, I feel it's more impressive when directors show range, as they are the ones putting the whole movie together and telling a story. Looking at the versatile filmmakers, it's amazing how they pulled off making different types of movies. Steven Spielberg can competently do fun and exciting blockbusters like Jaws and E.T. and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Jurassic Park, but he can also competently do something more serious and dramatic like Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan, etc. Billy Wilder competently made different kinds of movies like comedy with The Apartment, The 7-Year Itch, and Some Like It Hot, drama with Lost Weekend, romance with Sabrina, and film noir like Sunset Boulevard and Double Indemnity. Howard Hawks competently worked in different genres like comedy with His Girl Friday and Bringing Up Baby, the musical with Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, crime like The Big Sleep and Scarface, and westerns with Red River and Rio Bravo, and so on. That's how I feel. You've been on sets, so you might have a different point of view. Thanks, and live long and prosper. No, Omar, I am with you 100% about that. Look, I think storytelling is storytelling. And while you might say that guys like Alfred Hitchcock predominantly worked in did various versions of suspense and things like that, I think some of my favorite directors like Stanley Kubrick certainly could jump from Spartacus to Lolita to Dr. Strangelove to 2001 to A Clockwork Orange. I mean, that's wildly diverse. And a lot of my favorite directors can do that because I think storytelling is storytelling, and if you're working in a storytelling form, the genre, you should be able to flip between genres, and I think the best filmmakers can do just that, go between genres, which I think is great. And I think I like filmmakers for doing that. And you're right, the examples you pointed out were terrific. Josh Crichton writes and says, Dear Rob, thank you for clarifying yesterday as to why you're not on Twitter. I'll be back. My first reaction was, wait, what Twitter banned Robert Meyer Burnett from its platform? So in my response, I went Real London website and signed their digital freedom of speech letter because Rob needs digital freedom of speech. Then I started writing a letter to you titled, I've been silent enough. It's time for me to rage against the social media mainstream platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, basically in protest at the time due to Twitter banning, and writing to the community of what I've seen with censorship since April 6th. When I started to realize our freedom of speech and our rights as citizens is fragile like glass, and censorship is dangerous. Rob, if you could read this letter, the link below, to the viewers, and sign it yourself live on air if you don't mind, and pin it to social media as possible and in the chat. Remember, I'm fighting for all of you during this crazy time to protect everyone's rights and expose the truth about vaccines as well. Which I'll go into later at a different time. Sincerely, and thank you, Josh Crichton. Well, Josh, I'm going to read this letter, but I can't sign it online yet, and I don't know yet. I don't know how I'm going to. This is actually, you know what? I'm going to put this letter. I'm going to put this letter in the live chat because it's long. And I'm going to ask everybody, what do you think of this letter? I think it's a little, I don't know, Josh. I think it's interesting. There's a lot to say about it, but I'll be curious what you all think. There you go. London comes from London Real, End the Tyranny of Censorship Today. I think, so there you go. It's in the live chat. You can check it out. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think? But Josh, I want to thank you for writing in. It is a long letter, though. I'd have to think about it. This next letter comes from Ozark Matt Ankney. Ozark Matt Ankney. Dear Rob, I thought you might be interested in the recent Guardian article about possible alien civilizations. Apparently, the answer to life, the universe, and everything is not 42, but rather 36. And I like this article. And I'm going to read it. I'm going to read this article that you sent me, because this was in The Guardian today. and it was published at 7:58 Eastern EDT. Is that Eastern time? Eastern Daylight Time. Scientists say most likely number of contactable alien civilizations is 36. New calculations come up with estimate for worlds capable of communicating with others. And this was by Nicola Davis. They may not be little green men. They may not arrive in a vast spaceship, but according to new calculations, there could be more than 30 intelligent civilizations in our galaxy today capable of communicating with others. Experts say the work not only offers insight into the chances of life beyond Earth, but could shed light on our own future and place in the cosmos. I think it is extremely important and exciting because for the first time, we really have an estimate for this number of active, intelligent, communicating civilizations that we potentially could contact and find out there's other life in the universe, something that has been a question for thousands of years and is still not answered, said Christopher Consellis, a professor of astrophysics at the University of Nottingham and co-author of the research. In 1961, the astronomer Frank Drake proposed what has become known as the Drake equation, setting out 7 factors that would need to be known to come up with an estimate for the number of intelligent civilizations out there. These factors range from the average number of stars that form each year in the galaxy, through the time span over which a civilization would be expected to be sending out detectable signals. But a few of the factors are measurable. The Drake equation estimates have ranged from 0 to a few billion civilizations. It's more like a tool for thinking about questions rather than something that has been actually solved. Now, Consellis and his colleagues report in the Astrophysical Journal how they refine the equation with new data and assumptions to come up with their estimates. Basically, we made the assumption that intelligent life would form on other Earth-like planets like it has on Earth. So within a few billion years, life would automatically form as a natural part of evolution. The assumption, known as the astrobiological Copernican principle, is fair as everything from chemical reactions to star formation is known to occur if the conditions are right, he said. If intelligent life forms in a scientific way, not just a random way or a very unique way, then you would expect at least this many civilizations within our galaxy, he said. He added that, while it is speculative theory, he believes alien life would have similarities in appearance to life on Earth. We wouldn't be super shocked by seeing them, he said. Under the strictest set of assumptions where, as on Earth, life forms between 4.5 billion and 5.5 billion years after star formation, there are likely between 4 and 211 civilizations in the Milky Way today capable of communicating with others, with 36 the most likely figure. But Consellis noted that this figure is conservative, not least as it is based on how long our own civilization has been sending out signals into space, a period of just 100 years so far. The team added that our civilization would need to survive at least another 6,120 years for two-way communication. They would be quite far away. 17,000 light years is our calculation for the closest one. If we do find things closer, that would be a good indication that the lifespan of communicating civilizations is much longer than 100 or few hundred years, that an intelligent civilization can last for thousands or millions of years. The more we find nearby, the better it looks for the long-term survival of our own situation, which is cool. Civilization. Dr. Oliver Shortall, an expert in extrasolar planets at the University of Cambridge, who is not involved in the research, said several times as yet poorly understood factors needed to be unpicked to make such estimates, including how life on Earth began and how many Earth-type planets considered habitable could truly support life. Dr. Patricia Sanchez Baracaldo, an expert on how Earth became habitable from the University of Bristol, was more upbeat, despite emphasizing that many developments were needed on Earth for conditions for complex life to exist, including photosynthesis. But yes, if we evolved in this planet, it is possible that intelligent life evolved in another part of the universe, she said. Professor Andrew Coates of the Mullard Space Science Laboratory at the University College of London said the assumptions made by Consellis and colleagues were reasonable, but the quest to find life was likely to take place closer to home for now. The new estimate is an interesting result, but one which it will be impossible to test using current techniques. He said, in the meantime, research on whether we're alone in the universe will include visiting likely objects from our own solar system. For example, with our Rosalind Franklin ExoMars 2022 rover and the future missions to Europa. It's a fascinating time in the search for life elsewhere. Well, that's great. That's a cool article. I want to thank you for sending that in. You know, I would like nothing more than I would love to have a first contact situation where aliens exist and we get to meet them. I hope they don't, have laser guns, or I hope it's not a to serve man situation, because that would be bad. This next letter comes from Duncan Norris. Duncan says, Dear Rob, as promised, a letter for the show. I figured I would start out with an old chestnut. Superman killing Zod in Man of Steel. Insert John Schnepp, patent whiny fanboy reaction voice.
Superman never kills people.
I know. We're all a bit sick of that topic, but I shall be brief and hopefully shine a light on the obvious. In spite of this topic coming up so many different times, I've never heard it broached. My opinion on Man of Steel is that it's fine. I've seen it a few times, like a few scenes, not so much others, but it is neither much beloved nor hated by me. It's just fine. I add this so you know I do not have an axe to grind in its defense. Now, to Superman killing Zod, the objection voiced by many people is simply this. Superman doesn't kill people. It's an article of faith for many fans of Superman, casual and hardcore alike, and one which I also happen to agree with. Completely. I also have no problem at all with Superman killing Zod in Man of Steel. The apparent paradox of this so easily resolved, yet I've never heard anyone bring it up in so many words, so here it goes. Superman doesn't kill people. He's an alien with an overwhelming power who can kill any person on Earth as easily as an adult might an infant. There is no justification for him killing a person with such disparity in power, and being a righteous thinker, Superman knows this. Persons are, by definition, human beings. Zod is not a human being. Oh, I like where you're going with this. But a Kryptonian like Superman, equal in might. Unlike with a human person, it is a fair fight between them. Superman is not killing a defenseless human person. He's killing one of his own kind, who in turn is quite capable of killing him. The death of Zod is the outcome of a battle between equals and necessary to protect innocence. To emphasize, Superman doesn't kill people, because that would be simple murder. No Earther person can kill him. And the rules are akin to a decent adult playing a game with a small child, in which the adult will not unleash clearly superior ability to inevitably win. Killing Zod is the result of a battle between equals in which a completely different set of morality is in play. The difference between soldiers in combat shooting at one another versus a soldier shooting disarmed and tied prisoners of war. Being genuine equals means that the morality that applies between Superman and Zod, as understood by truth and justice, the American way not being much bandied about of Superman's character of late, means that killing is a regrettable but possibly necessary outcome in their conflict, which does not in any way change the fact that Superman does not kill human beings. Anyhow, just my thoughts. My God, son. Let me just tell you, Duncan, this is the best article I've read about this. I mean, the best. Yes, you're absolutely right, 100%. I'm going to steal it. I will always give you the props, though. I agree with you 100%. You're absolutely right about that. I never thought about that. He's not killing people. He's killing a fellow Kryptonian. But then again, the idea that Superman doesn't kill at all is, I think, what a lot of people talk about. I think that's what he means. But, I'm going to go with you on that. I really, really like what you're selling. I'm buying. I'm paying retail for that one. So, yeah. And let's see. A lot of people here in the chat today. I'm going to go back and here we go. Willow's here. Speaking of Superman, it's like I plan these shows or something. Willow says, do you have any theories on how Superman cuts his hair? He supposedly uses heat vision to cut facial hair, but the ocular gymnastics he's going to have to do to get such a perfect haircut seems pretty implausible. Well, Willow, it's funny. I figured I'd go onto the internet and find out, because there's been other letters and things to that extent. And it took me a cursory YouTube, wait, did I not do this right? I think I might have screwed this up. Yeah, I think I did screw it up. But hey, what are you going to do? Oh, you know what? When I had my weird YouTube shutdown, things things got mussed up. Let me put this back to where we can see this letter together. You know what I'm saying? So here we go. There we go. Superman cuts, and I found this article for you. How Superman actually cuts his invisible hair and beard, from Screen Rant. Let's see. Michael Young wrote this on May 30th, 2020. Superman has a wide variety of superpowers, and while many fans tend to focus on his super strength or his ability to fly, Clark Kent's invulnerability is also a big part of his appeal. Seeing bullets bounce off the Man of Steel firmly establishes him as one of DC Comics' most invincible heroes, and his superhero human body has only grown more and more indestructible over time, allowing Superman to withstand blows from gods or shrug off energy blasts that would vaporize most living beings. Invulnerability, however, is also giving Clark some unique problems, mostly dealing with his hair. Like every other part of his body, Superman's hair is also indestructible, allowing him to smash through buildings without mussing up his famous spit curl hairdo. However, this leads to the inevitable question, how does Superman shave or cut his hair? Surprisingly, the comics have given multiple explanations. During the Silver Age, it was actually established that Superman's hair and fingernails do not grow when he's on Earth. This offered a simple explanation for how Superman manages to keep his invulnerable body so well groomed, although it does beg the question of how his hair managed to cover his entire head if it hadn't grown since he arrived on Earth as an infant. Adult Clark's head is considerably bigger than baby Kal-El's, so unless his hair is also super stretchy, he should have developed a massive receding hairline as he aged. Amusingly, to explain why their son never had to go get his hair cut, Jonathan and Martha Kent once told the barber that Clark was bald due to an illness and was wearing a wig. The barber keeps Clark's secret, although one wonders if this bit of information ever came around to Lex Luthor. In one Silver Age story, exposure to red kryptonite accidentally causes Superman to grow a long beard and fingernails. While this was one of the milder reactions to red kryptonite, it still proved problematic since Clark Kent and Superman couldn't be seen with an identical hairy appearance. Glasses can only protect a secret identity so far, after all. Even Superman's heat vision, X-ray vision, couldn't cut this super tough hair, but fortunately a double dose from Supergirl and Crypto the Superdog managed to give Clark a much-needed haircut, shave, and manicure. After the original Crisis on Infinite Earth storyline, John Byrne introduced a new Superman, this one with somewhat scaled-down powers. This Superman was intended to focus on Clark Kent's human side, which meant showing him having to deal with mundane daily chores like shaving. As a result, Clark's invulnerable hair finally started to grow, requiring him to come up with some innovative grooming techniques. Initially, Clark may have been able to shave with a razor just like any other human being. Thanks to his new origin, his superpowers didn't start to emerge until his body absorbed sufficient amounts of solar radiation from the Earth's yellow sun, meaning he was indistinguishable from a normal human from the early years of his life. Although Clark revealed he was invulnerable enough to withstand being hit by a charging bull as a child, sharp enough pair of scissors may have been enough to cut his hair. And there's more of that from the Byrne Superman. There he is, cutting his hair with his X-ray vision or his heat vision. As Clark's invulnerability increases, however, he improves a different shaving routine. He improvises a different shaving routine, finding a piece of reflective Kryptonian metal from the ship that took him to Earth. He uses it to bounce his heat vision onto his face, burning away all the stubble. Unlike Silver Age Clark, the modern Clark's hair could be cut by heat vision. In fact, he even notes that if he isn't careful, he could cut himself with his lasers from his eyes. Fortunately, since a normal man's skin adapts to regular encounters with a sharp razor, Clark's skin also grew more accustomed to his heat vision. One can only speculate how Clark cuts his hair. While he could use the same technique he does for shaving, the ocular gymnastics he'd have to engage in, you must have read this article, to cut his hair so perfectly with heat vision are pretty astounding. Another possibility is that Clark found some sharp piece of Kryptonian metal that he was able to reshape into a pair of super scissors for haircuts. Another offbeat possibility is that Superman uses red sun lamps in the Fortress of Solitude to temporarily cancel out his invulnerability whenever he needs to cut his hair. You know, Willow, there's another article if I think you would be interested in about how could Superman, what would happen if Superman and Lois tried to procreate. It's a famous article, and I'll leave it for you to find. So there you go. what could I do? I had to look it up. So anyway, I want to thank you for writing in. Always questioning, always questioning. Lancelot Narian says, sends in a tip and says, Robster, the Living Daylights are Licensed to Kill, and why? I am not a fan. Licensed to Kill this summer celebrates its 31st anniversary, along with Ghostbusters 2 and Batman, and I think Licensed to Kill, it was shot mostly in Mexico, kind of on the cheap. I think Licensed to Kill is not a very good Bond film. I think it's one step above a Miami Vice episode, whereas I think The Living Daylights is still classic Bond. Although that's not to say there isn't things I don't like, and I like Fran Sanchez. I like both Carrie Lowell and Talisa Soto. I think they're great. Don't like Michael Kamen's score. Don't particularly much like the License to Kill, the theme song. And you know what? Another thing that's always bothered me about License to Kill is Timothy Dalton's hair. I don't get it. I love Timothy Dalton in the role as Bond, but I just didn't like that movie very much. On the other hand, I did love The Living Daylights. I love The Living Daylights. I thought it was great. Last John Barry score. It's an epic Bond. I thought it was really good. Let's see what people have to say here in... oh, you know what? Even this is not correct. It's very, very frustrating. Let me make this bigger because of it was fine until everything got wrecked. Mark C says, I'm okay with Warner Brothers' handling of Gone with the Wind, but despise Bob Iger for censoring Song of the South. To remove racially problematic films, to me, is akin to creating a generation of Holocaust deniers. I don't know if I'd go that far, Mark, but I definitely think you and I park our shuttlecraft in the same shuttle bay. You know, Song of the South was playing in theaters up through 1986. I grew up with it. And, you know, the Tales of Uncle Remus and all that. I liked that, and then it was put away. I mean, I can understand that, but, again, I think it should be brought out and contextualized, just like KAREEM Abdul-Jabbar said. I mean, it's a part of Disney history. It won 2 Academy Awards. It has ties to, obviously, Gone with the Wind. So I agree with you. Again, you put those movies out and contextualize them. You have people speak about them, wax rhapsodic, and explain why they were problematic. But why get rid of that great work that people did? I think I go back. I'm gonna love to use that KAREEM Abdul-Jabbar over and his essay over and over again. Twin Flicks was here. Announced today, Oscars are postponed until April 2021, and films up until February 2021 will be eligible. I have yet to hear a confirmation if streaming films will be eligible or not. You know, it's interesting, Twin Flicks, they didn't really say in that article. Have you heard anything? Spike Lee and Delroy Lindo is a must for the noms. Oh, Defy Blood's everyone's saying up for Best Picture and all that. I'm sure it probably will be, but again, they have not come out and said exactly what the policy is going to be. They have not said that yet, so I don't know the answer. Dancing Dog is here. Greetings, Robert. I tend to stay out of the live chat because it can get a little feisty in there, but I have a question. I saw someone on John's chat asking why Godzilla films have to cost so much money. Why not a man in a suit? Thoughts? Well, now I'm getting told that YouTube is not receiving enough video. You know, I'll tell you something, because it's... we in America, we would not accept a man in a suit Godzilla like we saw during the Showa era in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. We just wouldn't. We want our giant monsters to appear photorealistic. So that's why we're never going to get a man in the suit. And I think, you know, things have moved on. Things have moved on, and I think that it's probably good that they have. Dancing Dog says, greetings, Robert. I already read that. I thought you had another one. Stephen Foley sends in a super chat and says, when the word and thought police come for you, how will you fight? You know what, Stephen? Well, now I've got 442 episodes of my show. I think the only way you can fight is to keep doing what you're doing. You know, people can come after you and try and cancel you, but when you have enough of your own words out there and enough of your own work, then, of course, I have to believe that it's going to speak for itself. That's the only thing you can do is keep talking. You have to keep talking and make people understand you so they can't cancel you. Very strange. It's telling me that YouTube is not getting enough video for whatever reason. Hang on, maybe if I go to full frame or something like that, it'll work. Who knows? YouTube, wacky. Dancing Dog says, also, Warner Brothers owns the Hanna-Barbera library of characters. Do you think a live-action Johnny Quest is possible? Is the character simply a relic of the past, unknown to modern moviegoers? I see him as a preteen Indiana Jones. Your thoughts? They've been trying to make a Johnny Quest movie for years. For years. And I've read a couple of good Johnny Quest scripts, actually. I think my friend Adrian Iscaria is involved in producing Johnny Quest. I would love to see a Johnny Quest movie get made. I think it would be a natural. Evan Newman is here, and Evan Newman says, Rob, I bought my first Last Exit to Nowhere t-shirts today. Ooh, Lost Boys and Twin Peaks. But I didn't buy a fog-themed Antonio Bay 100th anniversary shirt because the dates on the shirt are incorrect. 1879 to 1979. They should be 1880 to 1980, right? I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe. Because the movie came out in 1980, right? So I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. That's a very good question. That is a very good question. I'd have to find out. I'd have to see what the signage in the movie actually said. Now you've made me curious, so I have to go do that. Stub McShave sends in a tip and says, I just found out that the official name of the Cantina band in Star Wars was the Jizz Whalers. It even had that name on the packaging of the Kenner figures. I thought it was figuring down in the modal nodes. Really? The Jizz Whalers? I gotta check that. Did you just write that in and make me say Jizz Whalers? Hang on a second. I can't imagine that they would get away with that. Well, it is in Wikipedia. A jizz whaler was a musician who specialized in playing jizz songs. Max Rebo and his band, oh my God, this is actually real. Max Rebo and his band often played popular jizz whaler standards. God. Well, I stand corrected. If it's on Wikipedia, you know. And that's under canon. Wow. But it does say Max Rebo. I always thought the Cantina band was well, hang on. Now I have to know. Yeah, it's Figurin' Dan, and the Modal Nodes is the name of the Cantina band. Well, let's see. Do they play Jizz Whaler music too? Let's see. What does Wikipedia say about that? Figurin' Dan and the Modal Nodes was a 7-member band that performed at Chalmun's Spaceport Cantina on the planet Tatooine around the time of the Battle of Yavin. The band was known to play the song Mad About Me. Now, it doesn't say they're Jizz Whalers. It only says that Max Rebo, Cy Snoodles, and the Rebo band are Jizz Whalers. Oh, boy. I don't know what to say to that. Twin Flicks sends in a tip and says, a huge announcement to all the Post-Geek Singularity tomorrow. The Hills Run Red, hit the streets. We're picking up our copy, and you should too. It's a hoot and has some twisted, gnarly deaths that need to be seen, along with 6.5 hours of features. When does that happen anymore? You know what, Twin Flicks? I forgot to send you a clip. I apologize for that. I can probably still do it. Dancing Dog 60 sends in a tip and says, why do some in the chat insist that Blazing Saddles was easy to make back in the 70s? Brooks had to fight with Warner Brothers suits constantly. He had to replace Richard Pryor as his lead because of Warner Brothers. It's why he left and did his other films at Fox. Easy? No way. I don't know why people would say that. I think they probably mean that he could get away with lines like, where are all the white women at? You know, he could pull that off. Excuse me while I whip this out. things like that he could get away with in the 70s more than he could today. Maybe. I think. Yeah, no, I know it was tough. David Goldstein sent in a super chat and said, I just bought my first hot toy, Justice League Superman. That figure is awesome. What are your thoughts on the show Smallville? I liked Smallville, but I didn't love it. I usually just tuned in when they would have like the Justice Society of America on. But I mean, I liked it. It's just that for me, 10 years or whatever of that mythology, it just seemed a little stretched out. I would like to have seen more to it than that. I think more to it. Twin Flick says Criterion announced that Elephant Man is on their September release. It's about damn time. Well, you know what I say about Elephant Man? I don't have to worry about Elephant Man because I have it on 4K. That's right, on 4K. And look at this. It even comes with what he was making in his. Look at that packaging. Come on, man. Yeah, I know. Criterion was making it, but I already have the Studio Canal 4K. Look at that. Look at how thick this set is. Woo! Just saying. Already have it. And I was actually, to be honest, a little disappointed with that release slate from Criterion. But anyway, now is that coming out in 4K? I didn't really notice. I still am waiting for Criterion to put out 4K. Koba is here, our favorite simian, says, speaking of historical movies, I still want a Hannibal the Carthaginian general and his quest across the Alps and his siege of Rome movie. I would too. I think that'd be great. I would love to see that. Who wouldn't? It'd be great. Dieter, the German angel, the Deutschland angel is here. Dieter says, there I was, driving home from my work through my hometown of Saarbrücken, shift done, when my telephone received messages from the USA that made me ghibli to no end. Like the Scorpion song, Make It Real, Not Fantasy. You did just that, Rob. Thank you very much. Well, you know what? I'm going to show the video that I made for Dieter that made him so ghibli. I'll start the show tomorrow with that video. I don't want to ruin the surprise. But it was something Dieter has done right by me, and I needed to do right by Dieter. So he asked me to do something for him, and I did. That involved another person. And I won't tell you what it is. I'll just have to show it to you because it's like The Matrix. I don't understand why I keep saying that the connection's wrong. I just don't get it. It's so weird. Honest Asian Guy's here, and he says, hi, Rob. What are your thoughts on the Hong Kong paranormal thriller The Eye? I own The Eye. I initially thought the film was gimmicky, but then I stayed up all night thinking about all the horrific things that happen beyond what our own eyes can see. Thanks, and enjoy your day. I like The Eye. They remade it, too, right? Didn't they? I didn't see the American remake. I think they remade it. I think that was part of it. It does have an element of what the movie implies is terrifying. But I do like the film, although I only have it on DVD. But I liked it. Let's see, what was it? I mean, I seem to remember it was remade. Hang on, let me check that newfangled internet. The Eye remake. Yes. It is. Okay, here you go. The Eye, the American, it's the Pang Brothers movie, obviously. The Eye is a 2008 American supernatural thriller horror film directed by David Moreau and Xavier Palud, scripted by Sebastian Gutierrez, and starring, of course, Jessica Alba, Parker Posey, Alessandro Nivola, and Raid Sherbaz, who's the greatest character actor on the planet Earth. Yeah, I mean... I like the original movie. I did not see this remake, but I like the Pang Brothers too, so I like the movie. I thought it was good. Hey Rob, I shed a few years today as I found out Best Buy has reopened stores to the public starting today, and all 800 stores by the end of the week. It'll be refreshing to browse the 4K Blu-ray and Magnolia sections again. Yeah, I was looking into a TV from them and it disappeared. The TV I wanted disappeared. I'm with you. I saw that Best Buy opened. I don't even go to Best Buy anymore. I just order like the Jaws, the where is it? It's there, the Jaws. I just order stuff. It's like I never I never go there anymore. But you're right. I would like to go browse the Magnolia stuff and look at their high-end TVs. And so they are open. Best Buy is open for all of your electronic needs. Abram Treadwell sends in a super chat and says, did I miss it? Did you ever reach the guy who made you all of those cool stickers? We did. We had a conversation, and we went back and forth via email, but we've never talked. That's a good question. I should talk. You know what? I'm going to call him. I can't call him today, but I'm going to call him. That's a really good idea. Because those stickers are great. What Abram is referring to are one of my great imagination connoisseurs sends me things like he makes sticker sheets like this of these vinyls, just the most geeky. What Last Exit to Nowhere does with T-shirts, he does with stickers. It's amazing. It's incredible. But that's a good question. I got to call him up again. Paul Gilmore says, I shed a few tears, not years, when I found out about Best Buy. Dang typo. I knew what you meant. Lancelot Narayan sends in a tip and says, what's your favorite swear word? Mine is brah. Is that a swear word? My favorite swear word is definitely see you next Tuesday. Because if you say that in America, like out loud, especially if you say it to somebody, it's still, everybody stops. Everybody stops. I mean, you say, fuck, nobody cares. You bust out a see you next Tuesday and you mean it. I mean, I know in Europe, in the UK, people say that all the time and nobody cares. But in America, you say see you next Tuesday. And to anybody, I'm telling you, there's power there. Abram Treadwell sends in a super chat and says, I finished the Godfather trilogy last night. Awesome. It is so awesome. Godfather 1 and 2, I think, are two of the greatest things ever made. I love them so much. Anonymous sends in a tip and says, people complained about Superman killing Zod in Man of Steel. By the way, I'd love to know what you think, Abram, about Godfather 3. Controversial. Obviously, it's not as good as the other two, but I still like it a lot. Anonymous sends in a tip and says, people complain about Superman killing Zod in Man of Steel, saying it's out of character, yet are okay when he crushes every bone in a powerless Zod's hand. Like, that is literally torture. Christopher Reeve's Superman tortured Zod. Yeah, I have never understood that. It's always a bit sketchy to me. Yeah. Stephen Foley sends in a super chat and says, hey, Rob, I love a movie called The Order. It's not a great movie, but it's a fun one for me. Is that the Heath Ledger movie? Have you seen it? Do you have a movie like this? I don't know if The Order, I mean, I remember it, but let's see. Movie. Sin Eater, that's what I thought. The Order was called Sin Eater. Yeah, it stars Heath Ledger. Okay, yeah, we're thinking of the same movie. Which, I mean, I liked it. I actually saw that movie. I saw the movie in theater. I liked it. If that's the movie that you're talking about. I liked it. I liked that film. I thought it was good. Yeah, it's good. But when you say, do you have a movie like that? I don't have it, but I like those kinds of movies. So, yeah. Bob Kowal sends in a tip and says, in my humble opinion, Superman has become allegorical to power structures. His adherence to the American way, the American concept of limited government, informs his resistance to hold authority over others, even though he could unilaterally create an orderly society. I think that's true. I mean, you know, one of the things I liked about Neil Gaiman's Miracle Man after he took over from Alan Moore is that he dealt with that. What if Superman decided to remake humanity in his own image? I think that would be great, but I totally agree with you. Mark C. said, I sent in a super chat before your stream crashed. I hope you can find it. Well, let me go back and look. It should be okay. I'm looking. I mean, I read the one that you sent about Gone with the Wind. But that's the only one. Just the one about Gone with the Wind. I didn't. The other one, maybe it got lost. So I apologize for that. Yeah, it's not here. I don't have it. Lancelot Narayan sends another tip and says, I agree with you 100% about The Living Daylights over License to Kill for exactly the same reasons you mentioned. If you don't know it, check out 007 magazine in the UK. Oh, I know that magazine. I like that. Mark C says Kleenex cuts Kal-El's hair. Also, you did find my super chat. Oh, okay, that's good. Oh, I'm glad. Yes, it was there. Regis K says, hi, Rob. As a professional 3D animator, I worked on Godzilla King of the Monsters before moving on to The Predator, Dark Phoenix, and Doolittle. I'm glad you liked King of the Monsters. It was my first VFX experience. Well, Regis, congratulations. I love that. I love that. So congratulations on that. I'm glad your effects career is working out. I love King of the Monsters. Have you worked on King Kong versus Godzilla, and what can you tell us about it? Jason Bueno wants to know where my Artemis Fowl review is. You know what? I don't think I'm going to be reviewing that. It just bums me out. I don't like it that it's getting such bad reviews. I don't want to watch something. I want to love Kenneth Branagh's work, but I don't. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm bringing an end to this episode of Robservations, today's Robservations, because we're going to be back at 7 o'clock, Elizabeth and I. We're going to be back in a little over 3 hours. And we are going to be talking on Whining About Movies about Jerry Maguire, Cameron Crowe's 1996 favorite romantic drama, Jerry Maguire, that stars Renee Zellweger and Tom Cruise, and also Cuba Gooding Jr. in his Oscar-winning role, Show Me the Money. So we will be back then. I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel. I want to thank all of you for writing letters. If you want to write letters and send me videos, you can at the Burnettwork.net website. Please do so, and I will read them on the show. And I hope I don't have any more weird technical glitches. Stephen Foley sends in a super chat and says, that shirt rocks. Yeah, I recently got this. I like this shirt. It has the logo, the Akira logo on the back in Japanese. I really like this shirt. I really like Akira. I'm a huge Akira fan. Yeah. So I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank my moderating staff. I want to thank Haynock. I want to thank the Richard. I want to thank Mike Bodden. I want to thank Greg Smith. And they do a great job. But, yeah, I want to thank them for being here. And if you haven't, go to the Post-Geek Singularity webpage on Facebook or the Whining About Movies Facebook page and check them out. Join, interact there. Find the Richard. He's always doing cool watch parties or DJing or doing something. So that's pretty damn exciting. So I want to thank everybody for everything, because why not? I'll be back on the John Campea show tomorrow. I will be back here tomorrow, hopefully with less problems. I mean, it keeps saying that my frame rate is 30 frames, and yet keeps saying it's not. I don't know why. There's all kinds of craziness happening. Dogs and cats are still living together, mass hysteria. But remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. And with that, I say to all of you, come back at 7 o'clock tonight for Whining About Movies, Jerry Maguire. Have a better day.